So today I'm going to give you the one thing you really need to survive nuclear war, World War III. And what that is the Attack Environment Manual from Fema. Now this manual was written in the 1970s prior to Fema receiving the name that it has now. So some of the chapters of this document will be titled Fema, some will have other agency titles on it. There are 9 chapters to this document. This provides you all the information you need to survive World War III. It cuts through all the crap, all the bullshit that all these channels are putting out on nuclear war, on what you need to buy, EMP, fallout shelters, bomb shelters. This cuts through it all. You're going to need a ream of paper. It's about 500 pages of material. This will teach you what you need to know. What the Attack Environment Manual does is discusses the environment that a nuclear war would occur in and what effects would change in the environment. So basically that's a description of the battlefield prior, during, and after a nuclear attack. These are the 9 chapters. You'll see the note about Chapter 3 being published at a later date. That chapter was published. This material is from the 1970s. If you don't have a lot of time and money, start with Chapter 2. There's a lot of important information in there. This is a critical table, cuts through all the crap about blast protection. If you look here, you'll see above ground and below ground. The first column is residences. That's 5 psi above ground, 10 psi below ground. So what we're talking about here is this figure tells you a value of blast overpressure where half the occupants will be killed in these structures. So the next thing we're going to do is look at a Psi chart. So what we have on the left is the peak overpressure from a nuclear detonation. On the right-hand side is the wind speed generated. What's missing from this chart is the 1 psi overpressure, which is approximately 37 to 38 miles an hour. If you have a home that is 50 foot long and 12 foot high, the wall exposed to a 1 psi overpressure will sustain 86,000 pounds of force from just 1 psi. So if you multiply that by 5 psi, you're starting to see what you're dealing with. So the bottom part of this chart, we're looking at the psi overpressure, and you'll see a 1 psi, you're going to get a lot of windows blown out, a lot of fragmentation from glass and light objects. This is at the 37, 38 mile an hour zone. At the 3 psi level, residential structures will begin to collapse, and you will get all kinds of injuries from those collapses. At 5 psi overpressure, most buildings collapse, and you get a lot of fatalities. At 10 psi overpressure, reinforced concrete buildings are damaged or demolished. Most people are killed. At 20 psi overpressure, heavily built concrete buildings are severely damaged or destroyed. That's pretty much 100% fatality range. So what we're doing is we're learning the reason you need to reinforce your house, your fallout shelter, your barn. Now, this Attack Environment Manual, it covers agriculture, it covers food, it covers recovery. It is critical you print this out. It is available on the internet. So it's critical that you get this material and print it out. This is from the Attack Manual. Here you have peak overpressure on the left, wind velocity in the middle, and the most important thing, it tells you how many seconds of duration you're going to get at that wind speed. So this is not just a gust of wind. You can have 4 or 5 seconds of sustained pressure. And at 1 psi overpressure, like I said, you can have 86,000 to 150,000 pounds of force against a common residential house. We have charts that show common things found around your home and at what values they will ignite based on the thermal radiation received from the blast. The third chapter tells about thermal ignition and fire. One of the important things here is it talks about shielding from thermal effects. So if you have a nuclear detonation and you have buildings, hills, valleys, trees that are in front of a building, it can provide substantial shielding from the actual heat that would ignite it. This manual contains information on the generation spread of fires, both historically and projected from nuclear detonation. It shows you how long a building will last under the thermal load. Most residences will be fully engulfed in less than 10 minutes, and with a 5 megaton detonation, the house may be burnt down in as few as 20 minutes. So it's giving you important information you need to know. Chapter 4 is a guide to planning for EMP, and it goes through a lot of EMP effects. This is a chapter all the salesmen out there don't want you to see. This is the critical information none of the salesmen and people that are pushing solar generators, electronic equipment want you to see. This chart shows you the sensitivity ranges of various electronic components. So if you look here at the bottom at microchips and transistors, you can see how small are values of energy they can absorb without being destroyed. When we get up to transistors, vacuum tubes, and motors, motors are the most EMP resistant, provided they don't contain microchips. This is why you want older equipment that doesn't have microchips and a minimum of transistors in it. This is critical. You need to make a copy of this for your records. The chapter on fallout radiation is excellent. It provides a huge amount of information, drawings, charts, test results that shows you and clears up all the myths that are out there on all these channels. You definitely need to read it. There's also a section in chapter on the medical effects. That is also incredibly useful information. It gives you a guide to what to expect and how to treat it. A very important thing that's never discussed is the post-attack recovery. So once the radiation levels are lower and you come out of the shelter, how do you rebuild everything? This is a chapter that is really going to hurt the feelings of a lot of the people that are pushing the various solar generators and lithium batteries and all that crap. Part of this chapter discusses expedient electrical power. Here you have expedient electrical power. You're using an older vehicle and you have modified it for cooling and exhaust inside of a building. And it shows you how to use a regular electrical motor run by the vehicle to actually induce electrical power into the wiring attached to it, and how you can set up a temporary junction box, charge batteries, or power things directly. This allows you to produce all kinds of power. This example is using a 5 horsepower, 240 volt single phase motor, but you could put an industrial motor here that's 3-phase and hundreds of volts and power it by a vehicle of sufficient size. This allows you to build a power plant out of junk you find after a nuclear war. Would you rather do this or buy a solar generator? What you want to do is go on your computer, go and do an internet search, and look for Fema Attack Environment Manual. And what you have to do is look up one chapter at a time, because that's how the files are stored. To get the complete manual with all 9 chapters, you'll have to do an extensive internet search, because all these chapters are not found in the same place. It wasn't until recent that you could actually find all the chapters on the internet. What's helped us is the fact that universities and federal storage facilities have gone online and they've digitized everything. So from various sources, you can piece this manual back together. This is a how-to course that will teach you how to survive World War III. Please share your comments. We'll see you on the next video.